Good evening, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's March 26th, 2020, and we're underway at 7 p.m. We have a few things that we're going to be doing different tonight than usual, simply because of the COVID-19 virus. I would like to point out that council, we are maintaining our physical distance or social distancing tonight, as are the couple of people that are in here that'll be participating on some of the agenda. And Council Member Fredericks is not here. One of the individuals he works with came up with a fever, and they both work in the as pharmacists. So on erring on the side of caution, Council Member Fredericks is with us by teleconferencing tonight. So Paul, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So everything is in working order, and we also will have one other individual here by the teleconferencing, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first up on our agenda is the invocation, and Paul, Councilmember Fredericks will handle the invocation for us tonight, and then we'll have the pledges to the American and Texas flag. So Paul, if you would do the invocation, and please stand.
Okay. Oh, Father in heaven, we beseech you for your blessings upon our land during this catastrophe that we are facing. We ask for your favor and protection on our world, our country, our city, and our families. We ask that you guide us in our fight against this contagion, strengthen us in our resolve to overcome this disease. We ask for your guidance so that we do not fail in our task. Lead us in the steps necessary to defeat this virus. Counsel us with your wisdom and grace. We pray for those who are working to heal the sick, those who are searching for a cure, and those who continue to provide for our needs. Give them strength and help. Give our civic and governmental leaders the courage, wisdom, discernment, and strength to see the needs of our communities. And help each of us as leaders in our community to display hope, generosity, and kindness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, next up we have, as always, the open session or citizens to be heard, and no citizens notified us to be able to call in for this. So we'll go on to our unfinished business. And our unfinished business tonight is discussion of an action on a request by Versaterra Development for a change in zoning from Overlay District B3 OD to Single Family Residential District R1 for 9.511 acres described as Bandera Oaks subdivision, generally located behind 12510 Bandera Road. For those of you that are not familiar with that, that's right behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken down on Bandera Road. This is on unfinished business at this because it was postponed from the last meeting to tonight's meeting, so it must come back as unfinished business. However, since this action
will now be recorded.
Since this action would make more sense to come after the approval or denial of the development agreement. If there are no objections from council, I would like to suspend the rules and move this zoning item down to after item 5 and before item 6, so that you guys can discuss and take action on the development agreement first. Are there any objections to suspending the rules and moving the zoning? Okay. Then we'll go down to individual items. Number 4, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting dated March 12th, 2020. So if I can have a motion and a second to discuss if necessary and take action on the regular meeting minutes from March 12th, I'll take them.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we or that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of March 12th.
Have a motion from Massey. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a motion from Massey, a second from Blue. Any discussion? No discussion being necessary, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Delayed. He's delayed. That was Paul.
Oh. That's different. Okay. Catch up, Paul. Okay, so we have a unanimous vote to approve the minutes. That'll take us to item number 5, discussion of an action on an ordinance approving a development agreement between the City of Helotes and Versatera Development for the purpose of setting forth the terms and obligations between the city and the developer with respect to the development of approximately 9.511 acres of real property described as Bandera Oaks subdivision. And again, this is located at 12510 Bandera Road behind KFC. So if we can have a motion and a second to discuss and take action on this, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we discuss, take action on 5.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Holmes. And you have the agenda request form and the development agreement along with the plat and the other information in your packet. So we'll use that as a guide. And Bert, it's your motion. And by the way, we have Wayne Flores here. Just wait until we have questions. He's with the engineering company, and then we have the developer, Paul, also on teleconferencing if you have questions. So as we get into the discussion, if there are questions, we'll call you up there.
Okay.
Okay, Bert, it's your motion.
Before I get started, this didn't go to P and Z, right? This-
Yeah.
It went to P and Z.
It went for,
No,
not
this
for the
doesn't
development?
have to go to P and Z, yeah, because this is the development agreement.
Yeah.
They considered the zoning.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, okay, it's all right. While I think it's a good project, I think there's some issues that might come up with it. There's maybe some setback problems with some of the lots, and maybe that land that wants to be donated. I would like to hear what the rest of council has to say about the agenda item.
Okay, Alan, it's your second, so you're up.
As I understand it, the donation of the acreage is a separate agenda item.
That is correct.
Okay. I don't have any questions on.
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that it's a good development that's going to be going in there. There were a couple issues that I had questions of, and I gave a heads up to our city administrator on one in particular. The concern I have is with regard to the setback requirements, not so much the side setbacks, because I realize that a 5-foot side setback is about all you're going to be able to do on a 50-foot lot, right? My concern really is the 10-foot front setbacks on what this indicates as cul-de-sac lots. You can't put even a car in the driveway. And to me, that is really not terribly acceptable for a neighborhood, especially one with limited streets and with the cul-de-sac being the actual area where people can't park. If you put a 10-foot front setback in a lot, you're going to have serious problems with the neighborhood and the street. So I had asked our city administrator in particular to at least identify which of the lots were designated as cul-de-sac, because when I look at the development, the way I look at it, both streets are cul-de-sacs. And so I wanted some clarification on that, but, and depending on what we find out about that, I may still have some objection to a 10-foot
Okay,
front setback.
Yeah, we expressed that same concern with the engineer and the developer. And it's just, at that time, it was 3 lots on that short little cul-de-sac off to the right. Is that now just 2, Wayne, or how many lots are we talking about?
I'm gonna let her bring up the plan here.
Yeah.
There you go. It would be the 3 lots, I'm trying to see the numbers.
17 and 18?
18 and 19.
19?
Right, the others, on the other cul-de-sac
Right.
You can see those are like flag lots, they're really deep lots, we have plenty of room there. It's basically those three, and honestly, the reason that we're trying to do that there is we've got some big heritage trees that we're trying to preserve. And so we're trying to configure the house pad in the location that would best preserve those trees. The nice thing about just those three lots on that cul-de-sac, that leaves a lot of room around the cul-de-sac to be able to park.
And just for the record, Wayne, give your name and who you
Yes,
represent, please.
Wayne Flores with KFW Engineers.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Anything
the
else?
clarification, Mr. Mayor. I think that makes sense to me, and I'm okay with that. I would like our motion and that to be included within the development agreement if the maker of the motion and second will agree to that. Because I think that's important that we specify exactly which ones we're talking about, to be clear on that. The second question I had was with regard to the monument sign. I understand and have no problem with the size, the dimension, the location of the monument sign, but my question really was to not assume that this is the final authority on that sign, that it will eventually have to go to Planning and Zoning Council for approval for design and shape and color and lighting and landscaping and everything else. That
Right.
was, just wanted to verify that and put that on record that that should happen. And those were my only two questions, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Cynthia?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Bert, any follow-up?
Something just popped in my head. Did we, I know we had to notify all the citizens and businesses around there from 200 feet. Did we get any kind of feedback at all?
No,
Nothing at all?
no.
Okay, that's all I had.
Alan, any follow-up?
Nope.
Alex, anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, so the request that Alex had is that the motion be amended to show that the cul-de-sac lots, wow, I turned that off, I could have sworn. Let's ring it in my hearing aids. Weird,
You have a hearing aid?
yeah, good lord. Okay, I'm back on track. So the cul-de-sac lots with a 10-foot setback would be lot 17, 18, and 19. So what you're asking is for those lots to be specifically noted as the only three that'll have a 10-foot setback?
Is that the same on the
Yes,
backyard as well, the backyard?
yes. The backyard, no, I think there are others that have the smaller, that's the
The
10-foot
backyard is
front
15
setback.
feet.
But in the same lots?
For the cul-de-sac lots, we're requesting a 15-foot rear setback. And there again, lots 9 and 10 would go between 15 and 20 feet to the rear lot line. And the reason there again is to save
Trees.
trees there.
Yeah, I've walked the property, I completely understand.
Do you want that specified or just the front?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're talking about the front setback of 10 feet only on lots 17, 18, and 19, and that the less than 20-foot rear yard setback would be on lots 9 and 10,
And
And
17, 18.
and 17, 18, and 19. So we have 5 lots with a shorter than 20 feet rear setback, and we can go ahead and adjust the development agreement to read that. Is that acceptable to you?
that's acceptable.
So the motion is amended to include that. Okay? Any other discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Make sure you ask our Paul if he has any
Oh, yeah,
comments.
Paul, anything?
No, I was good. Everything that I had questions about was already addressed in the agreement, so I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I forgot you were with us on,
Not invisible.
yeah, you are. You're represented by a little
Microphone.
gadget here on the dais, so I'll try not to forget you again. Okay.
No worries.
That's all right. So that's the motion, so a yes vote will be to approve the development agreement with those modifications. Again, specifically, a 10-foot front setback on lots 17, 18, and 19, and a shallower than 20-foot rear setback on lots 9, 10, 17, 18, and 19. So that being said, that's the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. Okay, that being done, we'll go ahead and go back and bring up the zoning, which is item number 3. And that's discussion of an action on a request by Versatera Development for a change in zoning from overlay District B3OD to single-family residential District R1 for this same 9.511 acres described as Bandera Oak subdivision. So again, if we can have a motion and a second to discuss changing the zoning.
Mayor, I make a motion to discuss and take action on 3.
We have a motion from Byes. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Blue?
Let Paul.
He beat you to it, Paul.
He's delayed, sir.
Didn't delay.
Okay, Bert, we're talking changing the zoning, so it's your motion, you're first up.
Well, since we approved 5, I think this is the next thing to do in order of business.
Okay, Alex, anything?
No, sir, I think it's a good move.
I think it's a good move, too.
Alan, Cynthia?
I'm okay with it.
And Paul, you okay?
Yeah, I think it's a good use of that property.
Oh, okay. That being done, no further discussion. We'll call the question. All in favor of approving the zoning change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Got you, Paul. Okay, motion carries and the zoning change is approved. Okay, next up, we have item number 6, which is a discussion of an action on considering an offer by Versatera Development to donate to the city approximately 1.9 acres of real property described as Bandera Oak subdivision, and again, located behind the KFC. The reason we brought this to you is this was part of Paul's offer on when they first came to us. And Marion and Josh Mayer and I walked the property a couple of times, and I walked it and took the pictures that are in your packet. And we just wanted to bring it to y'all. It's something that we're not sure of, so we wanted to get your input on it. I would like to say that we still have some unanswered questions about it, so it's not a necessarily imperative to do this with the others tonight. So if you still have questions that we'll need to find answers for, or you'd like to see what else we come up with before taking action, we can postpone this indefinitely, which will effectively allow us to bring it back anytime in the future once we get all the details worked out on what might make it more attractive to the city. So anyway, with that, I'd ask for a motion and a second to discuss and take action.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I move to discuss and take action on item number 6.
We have a motion from Massey,
I'll second.
second from Holmes. Cynthia, you're up.
Well, okay, first, I mean, looking at the pictures, it doesn't look like something that would be amenable to me as a park for the citizens of Helotes, number one. Number two, the only access to it, it looks like, is through this subdivision. It seems to me that if the way it's situated, that it would be better to do something, the developer to make it a park for the subdivision rather than the city. The other thing that bothers me, besides the fact that it looks like it contains a lot of water frequently, is that sinkhole, which is very dangerous and can be a liability to the city. I mean, there's ways you can put grates over it and that kind of thing. But I can just tell you right now that I'm not sure what you can bring back to me that would make me think this is a good thing for the city.
Okay?
I basically feel the same way, actually for 3 or 4 reasons. I don't think it's a good thing for the city. One, the retention pond is an expensive item to maintain. I know because I've taken care of 2 in my lifetime. It's the dredging of it, the cutting of the weeds and shrub that grows up in it, the reporting that has to go to the TCEQ. And as a matter of fact, this particular retention pond already needs some work based on the pictures I saw. The other one is what Councilwoman Massey just mentioned, I think the liability of the sinkhole is large, and I can envision children playing around it, and you could cover it, obviously, with steel plates or concrete or whatever, but that's an expense. The other one is that if the city did take it on as a park, well, then we have the expenses of putting all the park amenities into it, such as sidewalks or possibly a restroom, play equipment, things such as that. I think it would be an expensive proposition. And lastly, as Councilwoman Massey mentioned, to me, the park is not visible from the street of the citizens of Helotes. You have to almost go to it to know it's there. And I think it would end up being a park for the subdivision, Bandera Oaks, and really, I mean, it'd be available to the citizens of Helotes, but not convenient to the citizens of Helotes. So for those 3 or 4 reasons, I don't think it's a good deal for the city. And I appreciate the offer from Val Sotero. I think it's a good one, and we appreciate it. I just don't think it's a good move for us at the present time.
Okay, and just for clarification, it is a cave, and it does have this permanent grate over it, and it has been explored and mapped. Marion knows some people that have been down in this particular cave. It's not a habitat for anything. So just want to clarify, it, rather than a sinkhole, it is a documented and mapped cave. Alex, anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with the comments of the other 2 council members first. I would also indicate that this particular detention pond was designed not just for the other 9 acres, but for the entire development. So it is also one of the primary drainage areas for the Kentucky Fried Chicken, for the wash tub, and for the other commercial developments. And so if we were to take that on, we're not only dealing with the potential runoff from a neighborhood, but also from those commercial businesses, which could potentially get us some more work to do with TCEQ, et cetera. So I don't really see much of an advantage. I too have walked on the property. I'm actually live right next door. My back fence is against that property, so I see it all the time. And there's not really much of anything you can do. The few 100 square feet that are not in the detention pond are long, skinny things that don't even make a great walkway unless you were to end up clearing it, which kind of defeats the purpose of a park or a natural area to begin with. So I concur. Thank you.
Bert?
I just had a question. I guess it would be for, where is it, Paul?
Yeah,
For Paul, can I ask you real quick? If we don't accept your
That's Wayne.
I'm Wayne, I'm sorry. If we don't accept your donation, is this gonna be a deal breaker?
I don't think so, but I'm gonna let Paul
yeah,
address
Paul,
that.
Oh,
I
I'm
think-
sorry.
I think we talked about this before. This park acceptance is not contingent upon the subdivision going in, as I recall our discussions. Okay,
Okay,
Absolutely not. So the project will still be a go if you guys decide not to, and guys decide not to take the park conditions.
okay.
and this is actually good because, that's okay, Mike. These are all the same factors that Josh and Marion and I came up with. We've been scratching our heads. We just wanted to leave the opportunity open where if you guys did see some viability, there's still some things that we want to find out about it. So we have no problem with you taking action and saying no to this. It'll actually save us some work and research, and certainly Public Works from having to take care of it. So Cynthia, it's anything? Oh, Paul, yeah.
Alfred.
Once again,
Hey, sorry. Sorry, you gotta remember, I'm a septuagenarian here, and takes me a minute to get used to this technology. Besides, you're so slow.
It's,
yeah, well, I appreciate the gesture. I don't see any benefit for the city in accepting that property, especially since the use of it would be very, very limited, and then it would cause us to spend a lot of money to take care of it. So I'm really not apt to accept that donation.
Okay, thanks. Cynthia, anything else? Alan, any follow-up?
Yeah, I was not aware that it was also the retention pond for the other businesses along Bandera, and if that is the case, then
Yeah, it
definitely
is.
against it.
Yeah. Alex, anything else? Bert?
Nope.
Okay, we'll call the question. Yes vote will be to accept it, a no vote will be to deny it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry, I did it again. I'm sorry.
You always do that.
I'm telling you, I'm losing it.
All opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
I did it again.
The motion is denied, and we will pass on the offer to accept the 1.9 acres as a city property. Okay. Next up is item number 7, discussion of an action on ordinance suspending section 41.005 2A of the Texas Election Code to the extent necessary to allow the city of Helotes to move its general election scheduled for Saturday, May 2nd, 2020, to the next uniform election date on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, at the request of the Secretary of State and for the safety of the voters and election officials from the COVID-19 virus. And
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 7
So-
as written.
we have a motion from Massey. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Buys. Okay, Cynthia, you're up.
I have a little something. Could you pass this down to everyone, please? And here's one for you. And Marion, if you want this. As you know, these things, I debated back and forth whether to do this or not, because the more information I found out, the more I feel like we may have no choice. But I still think that I want to get this on the record. I have points to make regarding this agenda item. First, let me say that I've been doing a lot of research on this new novel coronavirus. The novel part is important in that no one has been exposed to this specific virus before, meaning no one has built up immunity to it. Of course, that was in the beginning. Now they're thinking that these people who have gotten it have some immunity. In comparison, the 2009 H1N1 virus, also called the swine flu, was also deemed by the CDC as a, quote, new virus that contained a unique combination of influenza genes not previously identified in animals or people. COVID-19 is not influenza. It is a highly contagious viral pneumonia. Nevertheless, at this time, the mortality rate is less than 1%. 80% of individuals will have mild symptoms, 15% will have severe symptoms, and fewer than 5% will be critical. Deaths are highest in the elderly, with very low rates among younger people, although medical staff who treat patients and get exposed are thought to be at more risk. But even among the over 80-year-olds, 90% will recover. Most infections happen in families where people live at close quarters. However, it is possible to pick up the virus on your hands from a surface that somebody with an infection has touched. That is why hand washing is so important. I am a healthy person with no underlying health issues. Nevertheless, last year in February, I contracted pneumonia from an unknown source. It was not flu-related, but it was viral. It was the most horrible health experience of my life. The coughing was awful, and sometimes nights I couldn't sleep because of it. I also had severe shortness of breath, and there were times I thought I might actually die. I was sick for 3 weeks, and it took another 3 weeks for me to be able to breathe normally without congestion in my lungs. I was treated with antibiotics and a decongestant. The 3 weeks I was contagious, I pretty much stayed home. I did my best to stay away from people, and I always had a tissue or handkerchief to cough into, and I washed my hands constantly. I eventually got over it, and because of precautions taken at home and when I went out, my husband never was infected, nor were any of my friends or family. I certainly do not want to go through such an ordeal again, nor do I wish it on anyone, friend or foe. However, the fact remains that disease and illness of every sort has been with us since the beginning of time. I'd like my fellow council members to consider the following points as we decide to keep our election date or change it. Imagine it is 7 months from now in late October. Despite the shutdowns and efforts of our political leaders, the coronavirus has not disappeared. And based on other viruses, such as the H1N1, it will still be here. In fact, the autumn weather may increase the number of cases since autumn starts the season for respiratory viruses that always threaten life. Will we again need to postpone the election? If the reason to postpone is, quote, for the safety of the voters and election officials from the COVID-19 virus, then why wouldn't we do it then as well? Number two, viruses thrive in cold, dry climates. New research suggests higher humidity and temperatures can decrease the number of people infected by an average person with the virus. Researchers have found that most coronavirus transmissions have occurred in regions with low temperatures between 37 and 63 degrees Fahrenheit. In most years, Helotes' May weather averages a daily maximum of temperature between 84 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, with the average of 76 degrees. Number three, the reason Helotes has always had its elections in May and not November is so that it doesn't get lost in the long federal and state election ballot. This year is the presidential election. Our election will be at the end of the ballot, and I am concerned that those who vote straight ticket, and there are many, may not remember that we have nonpartisan elections in Helotes and will forget to go down the entire ballot to vote. Number four, the average age in Helotes is 41. That means half are younger and half are older. We have a large elderly population that votes. But I am concerned that because of all the fear-mongering perpetrated by the media and some government entities, that they may not come out to vote in our May election. For me, that would be the only reason to postpone the election. But even that is outweighed by my belief that we cannot allow fear of this virus to rule our lives. Additionally, those individuals over 65 who are still fearful of this virus as we approach a May election can vote absentee. Number five, this pandemic has become a political football, with Democrats calling for shutdowns to continue indefinitely, and Republicans and the president understanding that to prolong a shutdown will cause our entire economy to collapse. The left would love this. They have been wanting government takeover of our country for years. This is not good for us as Americans. In fact, it is anti-American. Speaking from the group that is most affected negatively by this virus, I say don't let the cure, isolation, lassitude, and collapse of our economy be worse than an illness from which 99% of the population recovers. That's all I have to say right now, and I'd like to hear what my esteemed colleagues have to say.
Okay, thank you. Bert?
Well, I pretty much agree with what Councilmember Massey says, but the problem I'm having is we're going to have to, as far as I know, this is going to be, all the cost is going to be put on the city. Is that correct? Every bit of it, absentee voting and everything, which would be
That is
pretty
correct.
s-
That
pretty
is
s-
correct.
Yep.
We had a conference call with the other city managers, and they did a survey of all who is going to cancel, and the ones that were on the phone, everyone's canceling the election. The council has voted on that, except for 2 other cities that are voting either tonight or Tuesday.
Okay. I agree with a lot of the things that Councilmember Massey said, but this kind of concerns me, especially with the, to me, we're going to be losing some of our sales tax due to businesses not being able to operate like they normally do. Also, I've heard some things about our ad valorem tax that might be reduced. That could be out there too. I think we need to be fiscally responsible for our citizens, and I really wish it wasn't going back to the general election, like you said, even if it does happen then. But I think, in my mind, that's the thing to do. One other thing also, Marion told me that this is not a permanent move, so the next election will be in May if it's allowed. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, Paul, anything from you?
Everything I'm reading from the TML update, it looks like it's kind of pushing for option one. I couldn't hear a lot of the discussion. It was quite muted. So at least from what the little bit that I've read on those TML updates is option one is almost inevitable at this time, especially since people can't get out and meet the voters and have those kind of interactions with the voters.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Alan?
And again, I also agree with most of what Councilwoman Massey said. However, our first responsibility is to the citizens of Helotes, their health and well-being. And whether this is real or perceived, I don't know. I do know that most likely in the minds of the public, it is real. Whether it is or not, they perceive it to be real. My concern is that they won't come out to vote if we hold it on May 2nd, as the plan is. And I don't want to move it to November any more than anyone else on this council does, but I just don't think the people will come out to vote. Also, yes, you can say that early voting, they can do, not early voting, but absentee voting. However, that's as I understand it, a fairly long process where they have to submit a request to the county, Bexar County. Then Bexar County has to respond by sending them an application, then they have to fill that out and mail it back in. I don't know that there's enough time for the citizens who want to vote absentee to vote absentee. I would think they would have already done that if they wanted to vote absentee. I don't know enough about that process, but that's what I think it is.
Anything else?
That's it.
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm torn by this issue. I see both pro and con to both sides. I certainly do not want to delay the election. I think it's one of the things, I agree with a lot in those comments that I'm not so sure we will or won't have something else that's going to cause a problem in November. I am of the opinion, however, that I don't think this will be done in 2 weeks. Whether or not it is a panic or not, I think the answer is we're still going to have some issues. The one thing, and this may have been what Paul was alluding to in his, and the TML, the Texas Municipal League, sends us advice. They are our insurer and they are our advisor in many ways. And in their email that we all probably received on the city email, it basically says, and this is the email update number 7 that they sent, and I don't have, it was on Tuesday. Item number 2 talks about a shelter-in-place order, and while I know that our city has not had a shelter-in-place order, the county has, and so we are still done that way. What they basically said is, as many local political subdivisions are enacting shelter-in-place orders, this has a significant impact on elections. If your city or your county has issued such an order, you need to move your election. Otherwise, you are putting your election at risk of an election contest due to voters not being able to exercise their right to vote. Additionally, some political subdivisions have enacted fines for violating these local ordinances, and if your order does so and there is no specific exemption in it for voting or conducting elections, you're putting your voters at risk of criminal penalty for leaving their homes in order to vote. So I think that yeah, I agree completely that there's no guarantee that we're going to have something, but we have a financial consequence, we have a potential health consequence for a small number, true, but still some. And now we have a potential legal issue that could very well put what we do in jeopardy of being contested, because if our shelter-in-place order is extended into that absentee voting time, and it's only 11 days past where it is now, then we are also putting the entire process in jeopardy, and I don't know where we would go after that. So I would have to say that the unfortunate decision for me is, and I call it unfortunate, is to say we have to delay the election. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Y'all's reaction was basically the same as mine initially, but I've been going back and forth with Bexar County, specifically Jackie Callanan, and she said that if you decide to keep it on May 2nd, that we will be able to use their equipment, but the polling place will be here only for both early voting and on election day. In other words, the voters can't vote in other locations like they can for a regular election. It says all other issues will need to be handled by you. Notices, signage for the maximum of 10 people at a time, and then the 6-foot social distancing, assuming that's still going to be in place. You will have to meet to change from the joint to your own and decide the early voting hours. You are not required to be open on the weekend, but you still must have two 12-hour days, usually the last 2 days. They will handle the election supplies and legalities, but everything else will be up to us to take care of. So that would be pretty burdensome, whereas during a regular election, they handle everything. And I would feel like the turnout will be greater in November than it would be in May, simply because if this order is terminated on April 9th, people are still going to be hesitant to come out, because regardless of what we think, with the daily briefings that the staff and I are on, conference calls, they're still expecting the numbers to go up and this thing to get worse before it gets better. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen. But those are all factors that we need to consider, or you need to consider. And keep in mind, too, it looks like at this point, Helotes then would be the only entity in Bexar County that's having an election on May 2nd. So with that, Cynthia, any follow-up?
I anticipated all of your responses, but I just felt that I had to say this because
Sure.
I feel like the state has said they gave us the option to do this, but now they have a gun to our head, basically saying you really do have to do it. It's not really an option. You have to vote for it, is basically what they're telling us, by all these stipulations, and that really bothers me. I think, I don't like, what the county is doing, frankly, and I hate that we have to follow those edicts. But I do agree that, let's put it this way, I anticipated your response, but I have to vote the way I want to vote, and I'm going to be voting. Because I have to say one other thing. This actually is more beneficial for us and for me personally, because as y'all know, I have a book project and I'm in the middle of a deadline, and it was interfering with, the election was interfering. Well, that's gone. The only people it really affects are the 6 people running, nobody else, because I think the citizens are okay with the way things are going right now. I think everybody's handling everything fairly well. So, I don't want to be selfish, and it just bothers me that this is the reason that we're doing this. I think it's wrong. I think there's a lot of the fear-mongering and the scare tactics is totally beyond the pale. And many of our elected leaders are doing that, and I find it reprehensible that so many people are so frightened. So, and it starts at the top. So anyway, that's where I stand.
Okay, and the information that I gave you is just that, for informational purposes only, so you'd fully understand our responsibility if you have the election. And you do have the option to keep it in May. So they're not forcing you to move it to November. It's just really up to you. Okay, Alan, any follow-up?
I do. What Councilwoman Massey mentioned, that we're going to be stuck at the bottom of the ballot, and if somebody votes straight ticket, then it's pretty much going to leave Helotes out of the question. Would it be appropriate for the city to mail out a notification to the citizens of Helotes that our local election is on the ballot, it's on the bottom of the ballot? If you vote straight ticket, then you're not going to be voting on the city of Helotes election.
Yeah, the city can't do that type of thing, I'm pretty sure. We could certainly check, but that would be promoting something other than just go out and vote. That'd be giving specific instructions, and we really can't do that. I would say that once your precinct is plugged into the machine, the length of the ballot shortens quite a bit. So that was my concern also, but then you're going to have a heavier turnout. And most people go down the ballot. I know I always do, regardless if I vote straight R. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Paul?
No, sir?
Alex?
I think it's unfortunate, and I applaud Councilmember Massey for her stance and for her opinions and for her comment, and because I think they're well thought through, and I wish I could vote with you, but in the end, I think you know my position. I'll vote that way, but thank you.
Bert?
No, I don't think.
Nothing? Okay. Any follow-up, Cynthia?
No.
Okay. No further discussion. We'll call the question then. An aye vote will be to move the election from May 2nd to November 3rd.
You know what you're voting on? No, I got it.
Yeah, you got it? A no vote will be to deny the move to November 2nd and keep the election specifically here at City Hall on May 2nd, and early voting here also. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say, okay, thanks, Paul. Opposed, say no.
Nay.
Nay? Okay. We have 4 ayes and 1 nay, which is Councilmember Massey. So with that action, we will sign the ordinance suspending the election and, or postponing the election to November 3rd. Okay, next up, we have a discussion of an action on a declaration of the City of Helotes, Texas, extending a declaration order of a local disaster and public health emergency for the city as a result of the COVID-19 virus. We did issue, or I did issue, a declaration of disaster last Friday for 7 days, and this specifically, we are under the county's dictates of their executive order, the county judge's executive order, so we have not seen a need to be any more strict than the county judge, so we have not done a specific order with stipulations on it. This is basically for our eligibility to apply for reimbursement on many expenses from FEMA. And so this extension of the 7 days is for 60 days, and it will just continue to run. And we may bring it back to you if we need to extend it further. But this is specifically for us to be eligible for FEMA funds. So with that, I take a motion and a second to extend the emergency declaration beyond the initial 7 days for an additional 60 days.
Mayor, make a motion to discuss and take action on 8.
I have a motion from Bies. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Fredericks. Thanks, Paul. Okay, Bert, you're up.
Well, once again, we're kind of have to do this, if you ask me, and it's a 60-day declaration?
Yes,
that what you
it
said?
can, it has the option of being extended at the end of 60 days if it's still necessary, or if things change, we can have it terminated prior to the 60 days.
Oh,
But
we
as
can't
of
have
now,
it terminated before?
as
Okay.
of now, it's for 60 days, and that's simply to keep us from having to bring it back to y'all multiple times.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, the only question I have is if we cancel it earlier, and that was answered, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, Cynthia?
Exactly how does the FEMA, what do we get from this? I don't understand.
Let Marion address some of that, but we were on a briefing today, and what they call that briefing? Administrative briefing or something, to explain all of this, but Marion will explain it to you, and again, for the minutes, say who you are.
Marion Mendoza, City Administrator, City of Helotes. We get reimbursed for any overtime due to the COVID virus. So let's say if any of our employees, firefighters or police get ill, and then we have to bring our other reserves or other employees in to cover that. So any of that overtime, any expenses that we have had to purchase, such as the plexiglass that we've put in over at the development services, all the disinfect that we've been spraying here and at the parks area, all that will be reimbursed. So any expenses, the extra masks and, what is it, PPE?
The PPE?
Yeah, in general, any expenses that have related to the COVID-19 virus and so forth, those expenses, we keep it tracked, we put it in a GL account, a general ledger account, and then we send that to FEMA for reimbursement.
So it's just for city people, it's not for the citizens of Helotes?
No, this is just expenses for the city, for us to get reimbursed. So
Some,
we have to,
it's open to school districts and churches, as
Right.
well as certain nonprofits that serve a public good, but they have to apply on their own. They cannot piggyback onto ours. So this is specifically for the city. This goes back to January 20th, when the first declaration was made, and it will continue as long as this outbreak continues to go. So we don't know what we may incur in the future. If we have to activate our Emergency Operations Center, it will handle all the supplies for that. And there's a long list of supplies
Supplies that we
without going
qualify
into
for.
detail. Just know that without a declaration in force, that drops off our eligibility to apply for the FEMA funds. And keep in mind, it's a 75-25 split, so FEMA will only reimburse us 75%, but that's the same for any entity. If we have volunteers that come in, our material is donated, we can apply that toward our 25% match. But at least we're gonna get, if it's approved, and I don't know why it wouldn't be, 75% of all the expenses that we incurred due to this specific disaster, that will be reimbursed to the city through FEMA,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
and we would do that for any disaster that we were
Yes.
involved in.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, you're up. Alan, anything?
No.
Alex?
No, sir, I'm fine, thank you.
Bert? Okay, no further discussion. Paul, did you have anything else?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Then an aye vote will be to extend the current declaration for 60 days. A no vote or a nay vote would be to deny it. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thanks, Paul. All those opposed say no. Nobody said no. So the declaration is extended for 60 days unanimously. And that is the last item on our agenda. So if there are no objections, we will adjourn. No objections being heard. We're adjourned at 7:52.